there's one thing we can't deny, it's that piracy has always been a part of Brazilian culture and above all played a very important role in both our childhoods and the collective imagination of that era. The golden age of piracy was, without a doubt, marked by the launch of Sony's PlayStation 2. It was stylish, had an unmatched aesthetic, promised to be the most advanced video game of its time, far ahead of other consoles like the Xbox or Nintendo's GameCube, and simply had the largest game library in all of history. That's speaking officially, because if we look beneath the surface, we'll find the underworld of unlicensed games. But today we'll be talking specifically about a collection that shouldn't exist, against all odds, surrounded by mysteries in its development, obscure games, and a mysterious song whose creator no one knows. It was a tiring day at school, and despite everything, you're happy because you remembered you had 5 reais in your pocket. And torn between taking the bus or buying a guava with that money, you decide to go a different way and head to a PlayStation 2 game stall to see if there's anything new. And you feel a strange energy, you and the game meet. You pick it up, hesitate to buy it since there were so many better options and you didn't even know what it was about. Then the game speaks to you. Hey handsome. Who? Me? How about you buy me, huh? And how am I supposed to know you're better than any other game here? Don't worry, you'll find out soon enough. And after buying it, curiosity takes over you. On your way home, you anxiously try it out. You insert the disc into your video game. After the introduction, you come across a variety of available consoles. Among them, you decide to start with the Super Nintendo, and after a few seconds of silence, you hear this. And that's when we open a huge portal where thousands of children would spend hours and hours of their day exploring more than 7,784 retro games. This so-called super collection of 7,784 games was a compilation for the PlayStation 2 that was released in 2008 by an internet user named Arcanjo.eb, a Brazilian guy known in the modding scene, and Diego, who was responsible for implementing the emulators. Yes, just Diego. That was literally how he was credited. And well, this collection was basically a kind of homebrew. A CD compilation that brought together not only about 90% of the Super Nintendo library, but also almost the entire library of Mega Drive, Master System, Atari 2600, and even our beloved NES. This was bigger than anything we had seen up to that point. Of course, we had PS2 demo CDs, but to put together almost all the games from 5 major consoles of the previous generation on a single CD, and all that without even filling half the total memory of the disc. Even though they were old games, the math just never adds up. Besides the disc itself storing the games, it also had to have enough space to store the emulators so the games could actually run, which would make the disc even heavier. How is that possible? It's a question that echoed not just in your mind, but in the minds of everyone who had the chance to get their hands on that disc. Just how? The music was a very important part of the immersion that this collection provided us. PGN, the Mega Drive emulator, had bangers like this one. And even though the other emulators didn't have any music at all, in fact the one that's most remembered to this day is definitely Can't Stop Coming. The mystery surrounding this song has already sent the internet into major investigations. Who could be responsible for creating this great symphony? Well, according to my investigations searching for the song's name on the internet, unfortunately I didn't find anything. But the answer was right under my nose, and when I decided to search on YouTube, I came across the name _Azazel/DCS_, which are the credits responsible for the song. But okay, who the hell is Azazel? Let me just say, it has nothing to do with the Bible, much less demons. After a long time, I finally managed to find some information about him. Azazel is just an alias. His real name is Marcos Alacangas, born on February 21st, 1977 in Stockholm, the capital of Sweden. And he was part of 2 bands, one called DCS, which stands for Dual Crow and Shining, and another called the Black Lotus. These are bands focused on the demo scene genre, which are songs with computer-based aesthetics. chiptunes, and retro computerized visuals, which is basically what you're watching now in the background of this video. And this kind of solves part of the mystery, but it brings us more questions than answers. Azazel wasn't even credited in the SNES Station emulator. This and how many other songs like the one from the Mega Drive emulator still remain a mystery regarding the people behind these compositions, with no answers. Just the bitter taste of not knowing who was responsible for this, and maybe not even they themselves know the impact they've had on so many people's lives, even if indirectly. I believe many of you will agree with me, but besides the music putting you in an incredible state of immersion, these emulators also manage to evoke a feeling of tension, fear, and insecurity, because behind each name on the list, behind each letter chosen in that vast sea of games, you never knew what awaited you behind the black loading screen. Of course, I can't deny that I was a pretty scaredy cat kid, and maybe you think I'm crazy, right? But tell me, haven't you ever been startled by a game you could have sworn would be cute or fun? One moment you're happy because you found a Woody Woodpecker game for the Mega Drive, and the next you're scared out of your wits because you started up some game with creepy music. I could mention several bizarre examples like Gigas from Earthbound, the Echo the Dolphin game itself, or for me, the weird Shaken game. I can't really say what exactly scared me so much about that game, whether it was the graphics, the theme, or the music that was just too intense for my sweet childlike mind. Since I was more used to watching Cocorico on TV Cultura all day long, yeah, I was kind of a sweet kid. But if there's one game I'm sure wasn't just in my head, it was Mr. Nuts. At first glance, it's a really beautiful game. Charismatic main character, cute music, cool gameplay. But the real nightmare lives in the bosses of this game. All of them, without exception, are nightmare magnets. But there's one in particular that surpasses all the others. The fourth boss? Oh yeah, the fourth boss. I don't know what was going through the minds of the people who developed this game to include a literal materialized trauma in a game aimed at children. But hey, congratulations Ocean, you did it. Because this demonic thing managed to scare even an adult. Well, in the end, while exploring these huge lists made you feel like a real explorer, it was basically a game of Russian roulette. Sometimes you could end up with a really good but little known game like Super Adventure Island 2, which is a franchise from Hudson Soft, the same company behind the Bomberman games, a game that mixed RPG with action and platforming, which literally carries the word adventure in its name. And it was a personal milestone in my life and one of the first games I ever finished. Now when it comes to bad games, my friend, this collection is full of them. Put yourself in this position. You're hunting for new games, and in the S section of the list, casually and without expecting anything, you come across a game called Sonic the Hedgehog 4. And you think, what? Sonic 4 for Super Nintendo? How have I never heard of this? And when you open it, this is what you find. Yeah, I think you noticed that this is definitely not a Sonic game, much less a lost sequel that Sega wanted to forget. This is a hack and run, where some crazy developer messed with the code of another game to create this atrocity. And our victim this time was the Speedy Gonzales game, just with swapped skins, repeated sounds, and Mario thrown into the story for some reason. But whether the games were bad or not, nothing can describe the feeling of beating one of these games. Personally, I believe it's every decent human being's duty to have their first experience with these games and to feel the satisfaction of finishing Super Mario World for the first time. We live in a generation that prioritizes the extreme, the simple, the fast, the easy. Want some advice from me? Sit down, relax, forget your phone. Pick up a retro game to play. Try to beat it. Even if it's hard, don't use cheats, don't use codes. Just finish it with your own effort. And you'll realize just how magical these experiences can be. Nowadays, it's very common for a game to have post-main campaign content. You finish the game and there are still side missions to do and so on. But back then it was different. You'll feel such great happiness and such a strong emptiness when you realize that the game you worked so hard to beat has nothing left after the ending screen. Personally, I felt that way when I finished Ocarina of Time for the first time. All those characters, that universe so vast yet so limited. And I was supposed to say goodbye to them because my mission was already accomplished and it was time to turn off the console. But after all, among confusing menus, not so dynamic navigation, buggy games, psychological traumas, and strange games, this was the most important and impactful CD for the Brazilian people for more than a decade. And there's a good chance that those who had this CD didn't even get to play half of what was waiting for them. Arcanjo left such a great legacy, even against all odds. A disc that wasn't supposed to be compatible with the PlayStation 2, unknown musicians, or even mysteries about its development that never came to light. But not everything was about to end. It was later revealed in an interview that Arcanjo and Diego were planning a bigger and better version of this collection, even including Game Boy Advance games. It would be a sad story, but I also found out that a channel called Fabricio VGL continued Arcanjo's legacy and has been developing versions of this collection to this day. So if you're curious to try out an improved version of this collection, go check it out because it's really worth it, and at the same time, you're supporting Fabricio's channel. And I truly hope from the bottom of my heart that if you've never played or never had the chance to try an old game, play, because that will by far be the biggest turning point in your life. And if you want to keep exploring this strange side of gaming culture, these stories that no one has properly documented, then stick around, subscribe, because there's still a lot buried out there that we're going to explore.